We're back. I'm back. Let's reset the timer. Turns out that I came prepared. The game is loaded up here and ready to go in a second anyway. I'm going to update this. Technically, this game is just called Batman, so let's do that. You're also going to have to update this. This is game number 7, and it is for the PC Engine. Better have a decent 1cc first credit for fat score. We'll see about that. I'll do my best, McCaw. Probably not going to happen if I'm being perfectly honest, but and I can definitely say that we will not be sticking with this game until I get a 1cc, because we'd be here all day. But we'll see. I do remember the first time I played through this, I definitely got stuck on the final boss, because this game does not have bosses. It doesn't really have action, exactly. And the game basically introduces like a complete new level structure and mechanics for the final boss, which for the record, I think is fucking ultra sick. I love that it does that. But I do remember it being a little confusing, and it took a fair bit of trial and error to figure it out. Maybe I have enough vague recollections of how that worked for me to sort of not have to take as many attempts to figure it out this time, but I really do not want to make any promises. Alright, let's boot it up. Fucking starting off pretty damn strong. Let me fix the cropping here. I think it's a little bit off. How fucking good is this music? Yo, Phantom X-Step, what's up? Yeah, we got some Michael Keaton action coming for sure. Like, how do you not get pumped when you hear this? And Barney FF, what's up? I probably missed saying hello to a few people. We got a whole gang here, which is awesome, by the way. Very happy to have a bunch of people join me for this. Well, it's sad that they delayed the TurboGrafx Mini. I think that game looks, that thing looks cool for what it is. I think it seems to be well made. But I don't really have much of a purpose for it, since I already, like, the investments I made in the real PC Engine and the Super SD3 system means that the PC Engine Mini is like a bit, what's the word? Redundant for me. I mean, I bought the Japanese Mega Drive Mini, which is definitely just as redundant for me, but I love the Mega Drive enough that it was kind of a no-brainer. But it's a cool thing. I do think they came out in Japan, though, right? Because I've definitely seen people on Twitter with, like, photos and stuff. But I could be wrong. But maybe it's just overseas shipments that were delayed. I guess I don't really know. A shame for people who are excited to play it, but at the same time, the world being what it is right now, it's, and I mean, I was going to say, you can just sort of live with it. You know, I won't fault anyone for being desperate for an escape from the drudgery of their ordinary life. So, I mean, I guess it's not fair to say that it's you shouldn't be upset about it. I mean, it sucks. Delays like that always suck. But at the very least, from the looks of things, you know, it seems like it'll be worth the wait. In any case, since I'm the lucky owner of an actual PC Engine, we're ready to go. So let's do it. Let's push run button. Start the timer. Ooh, we get passwords. So this game has a bunch of original music, but it also has music from the other games, basically. Fairly cute Batman sprite in its own right. Alright, we got like limited... Alright, picked up a pair of bat boots. I guess we run faster. We have like limited weapons. So I'm assuming what we're meant to do here is collect Joker gas vials or something. Because the enemies are generally not the goal. Yeah, it looks like we've got one vial left to collect. Or box. So I'm gonna have to like kind of piece together how to play this game because I don't really remember. So you can stun these guys and you knock them away like that. A little bit like Mario Brothers or Goof Troop or what have you. But you're like locked in place when you throw the Batarang. You can only throw one at a time. So early on, the game is like pretty forgiving with the enemy distribution. That bomb probably killed everyone on screen, if I had to guess. Or on the stage. Enemies respawn, obviously. Music's so good. Yeah, we get some Batarang upgrades, so you throw the Batarang faster and further. I can't remember if there's like other special weapons, but there's different types of stages. Gunborg, this is on PC Engine. Whoa, that guy's fast. This game is a PC Engine exclusive, and it only came out in Japan. Alright, so we got a multi-section stage here. I think it's kind of strange, honestly, that this game didn't come out in the US. I know that the TurboGrafx library was pretty limited, all things considered. But maybe it was some sort of licensing issue, because I think this would have been like I can't imagine this being turned down for release. All right, so the music here a little familiar, maybe. I can see the you know, magazines shitting on this game for not being an action game, but it's absolutely not bad. It's very charming and looks and sounds awesome. So we got some areas like this where it's a little more open. It's not just these narrow hallways. Alright, got it. Yeah, Sunsoft made the NES game, the Game Boy game, the Mega Drive game, and this game. So this game does have some music tracks from the NES game, and I think the Mega Drive one also. Yeah, we talked about how cute Batman looked in the Game Boy game. This isn't quite on the same level, but it's up there. Certainly warrants an honorable mention, if nothing else. The top cute Batman sprites. The clowns, definitely. These guys are fucking super cute. Macaw going fucking nuts over the score counter, tallying up point by point, counting every single punto one by one. Baseline. There we go. I guess I missed a pickup there. So the game has I think it's something like 40 or 50 stages all in all. It's still pretty easy. It's nothing super advanced just yet. These are like the most basic stages. But there's like other categories of stages, which we will see soon enough. I fucked up. I was scared that the blue guy was going to come after me, so I wanted to squeeze through. That was really... I was being impatient. I do like the little life indicator on the bottom left. That's a pretty good icon. So that guy over there, he's got like fucking super soaker or something. We probably want to take care of him from a distance. Oh, sure. It's interesting that this, like, there's... I gotta imagine there was some overlap in staff. I mean, I know it's the same composer. Hey, new music. But I imagine there's some overlap in staff between this and the Mega Drive game, because I feel like some of the graphics Like some of the color palette choices and stuff like feel very similar between these two games. It says walk! Alright, I'm speeding through there. Let's hope we don't have to cross the street again. I like the little horn. Dude, he fucking... Okay, I guess this guy instantly turns around if you're on the same, like, plane as him. Suddenly Fryer. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, people who play this for 5 seconds, they go, oh, it's Pac-Man. And yeah, the very first stages are very... I mean, it's still not really... It's not like a Pac-Man clone. But it's, you know, obviously the similarities are noticeable. But we haven't gotten super far into it, and already things are kind of a little different. And things will get a lot more different. I'm so scared of these fucking cars taking the long way around. I don't trust these fucking street signs. I'm not sure what the strat, like what you're kind of meant to do there, if I'm being honest. But I'm pretty sure you have infinite continues. we're at 0 lives at stage 9, so the 1cc is looking unlikely. Yeah, the PC Engine is a very interesting console. I think it has a very cool library, but it definitely has... I was gonna say identity crisis. It's not a fair way of putting it, but its place in video game history, or like the technological sort of... Man, hard to English here, but it's definitely distinct from the Famicom and NES, but it's also, it's like equally distinct from the Super Nintendo and Mega Drive. I mean, if it has similarities to any console, I guess it would be the Mega Drive, but even so, they each have their own very distinct personalities in terms of library and, you know, what playing games on the system is like. I wouldn't say that I know for a fact that, you know, top-down maze games in particular is like a hallmark of the PC Engine library, but... Oh, shit. I somehow got a one-up along the way there. But it's the sort of... Like, maybe not the specifics, but the general gist of it being... Oh my god, he recovered. That's a good game over jingle. Maybe not the specifics about what the game is per se, but like it's carving its own path, I guess. It's the best consoles. Best console, I don't know how more identified you could get. Oh, you're so slow without the... Oh my god. we need to get a couple of upgrades here, I think. So I'm enjoying PC Engine stuff. Like, it's pretty new to me. I bought my PC Engine last year, I want to say. And it's not my first time playing any PC Engine games, or playing on a PC Engine for that matter. But over the years, I've never really, you know, spent that much time and effort really digging into the PC Engine library. So, I've done a number of streams since last year when I got the console, kind of specifically doing that, just like fucking around, learning about PC Engine games. Is this invincibility? Yeah. And it's always super interesting. Like, I don't think I've played a single PC Engine game that has bad music, for example. Yeah, Batman, not quite well rested. Oh man, I didn't realize we cleared out so much of the level. Ah, I got so lucky there. There's only one thing left, but it has to be over here in the bottom left. Yeah, I think it's past the guy. I think I essentially took the exact same route this time as I did last time. There it is. Okay. Ooh, I'm definitely grabbing this first. Bat boots. Alright. CD library's a mess. I don't know, I think that the CD and Hue card libraries are obviously pretty distinct in terms of the types of games. To some degree. Like the CD has everything and anything and everything, but there are some types of games that are only on CD, and there's definitely games that are. Oh shit! You can't. You all right? Okay, you have to use the crosslinks. I see. Oh, shit! I didn't want to stop in the middle of the road, so. Oh, the music's so good. Again, like, the types of games that are unique to the Hue card or the CD are different, but they're both equally interesting in their own ways, I think. But the thing with the PC Engine and my familiarity with it, or lack thereof, it kind of comes down to the fact that my formative years of... Are those? Yeah, okay. My formative years of digging through, like, libraries of games on emulators and stuff. Because I spend a lot of time, like, my sort of... I mean, people who are regular viewers will know that I collect a lot of weird old shit, but I dare say it... Not compared to someone like Macaw, maybe, but compared to most other people, I would say I have an above-average knowledge of old games. And a lot of that comes from literally, like, spending, you know, most of my free time when I was a teenager, like, sifting through databases of MAME dumps, just downloading anything I can find, and just literally go through an alphabetical order and just play any Mega Drive or Super Nintendo game, just to see what they are, basically. So I'm too impatient for these guys. And at the time where I was doing that, PC Engine emulation wasn't as accessible as it is today. Shit, I didn't mean... Oh. Like, you had to play, what was it called? Like, Magic Drive or whatever. There was that one... Magic Engine, was that what it was? There was like one emulator, and it was commercial and cost money, and I don't know. It wasn't necessarily impossible, but it wasn't as trivial. And even knowing about stuff and finding stuff that was like Japan only, which obviously a lot of the PC Engine library is, in many different aspects, it just was not as trivial as it is today. And I think that kind of led to... And I would say, even though I definitely had the same kind of curiosity back then as I do now, it wasn't at the same level. So I would not have been willing, I guess, evidently, to be jumping through as many hoops to mess around with as many games. I definitely played this game back then, though. I played Die Hard. Like, the little time I spent with PC Engine stuff, I would, you know, you'd go for the stuff that you recognize. Bomberman, Batman, Die Hard, whatever. Oh, I need to sit up. Also, try to catch up with chat. But it was fortuitous that I had the opportunity to grab the Super SD system stuff, because it's like... it's what led me to finally get into PC Engine, because I'd wanted one for many, many years. I guess that's the other thing too. Like, by the time PC Engine stuff started becoming a little more trivial, I made a mistake because I can't walk over this. By the time PC Engine games and emulation became more accessible, I had kind of moved away from emulators and started getting more into collecting real games. And even 10 to 15 years ago, you know, I think we probably fucked up by not grabbing everything we could in the first area first, but, well, yeah, we're just gonna have to backtrack. Even 10 to 15 years ago, I felt that, like, PC Engine hardware seemed like kind of prohibitively expensive and finicky to purchase and deal with, and that obviously has not changed for the better since then. If you want to get a real, like, CD and everything, you gotta, like, replace capacitors and whatever else. Alright, we gotta find whatever I skipped. Oh, there it is. So for me, the Super SD3 was a real godsend because it allowed me to... Ooh, cutscene. This is the cutscene music from the NES Batman 2, right? Oh, that's awesome. Alright, so that's Flugelheim, a third spelling. So now we're in a different sort of gameplay mode here. Obviously the core of everything is the same, but... Okay, so the blonde guys, I guess, are the speedy ones here. We gotta undo the Joker's vandalism here. So my sort of philosophy when it comes to collecting games and real hardware, real software, etc., is basically that... Okay, I got a little lucky there. I generally tend to prefer playing games on in their original setting. Sometimes, especially when it comes to like 3D games and stuff, I'm not opposed to using emulation and other tricks to kind of improve frame rates and resolutions and that kind of stuff. But especially in the context of doing something like this, where you're kind of chronicling the history of something, I want as much kind of context as possible to see what it was like on the real thing. And I think just, you know, having... There's something warm and soft and unquantifiable about an analog video signal that I just really enjoy. However, dude, how fucking perfectly did he time that? There's something about it that I just can't really explain, that it's hard to replicate with emulators, even if I'm essentially playing them the same way. However, if it's a game system where the games are like prohibitively expensive, then I'm in an awkward situation where like I would like to get it on real hardware, but if I can't afford it, then I'd... Like, if I give myself too easy an out to pirate games with like a flash cart of some sort... whoa, okay. I feel like I'm risking... all right. I'm probably never reaching that high score again, especially not if I keep chatting. But yeah, like I have poor experiences in the past with game systems where it's been too trivial to like pirate stuff for me to want to make the effort to... Shit. You stay vulnerable for so long. To make a long story short, like, I got a DS flash cart, and I never bought another DS game again. When I bought my Dreamcast in 2001, I want to say, I bought Jet Set Radio and Street Fighter 3 Third Strike with my Dreamcast. And those were, for all intents and purposes, like the last Dreamcast games I bought. Granted, I didn't have any money back then. I do now, so that's, you know, makes things a little different. But because I get so much enjoyment out of hunting for games and picking up weird stuff and not really knowing what it is, like, the way I enjoy my hobby... Oh yeah, I think this stage is looping, maybe? the way I enjoy my hobby, I feel like having that instant access to everything at one's fingertips definitely risks depriving myself of some of that enjoyment. So I'm a little careful. Alright, this is an annoying stage for sure. I want to be a little careful about putting myself in that position. So that's why, even though I would kind of want to get one, I have not yet purchased an EverDrive for my Super Famicom or Mega Drive, for example. Because I know that if I can't play anything, it's probably going to be a little more difficult to justify spending money on stuff. And if I'm not spending money on it, then I will have a harder time getting that kind of enjoyment out of it. It's my sort of fear, anyway. With the PC Engine, that was less of a worry, based on the simple fact that... Was there another... Yeah. Based on the simple fact that everything is pretty expensive. Yes, there are dirt cheap cue card games. They exist, but even then, there's not that many of them. And you know, the combination of the hardware and software, like availability and prices, and the having to, I don't know, fuck around with a lot of different stuff. Like it's basically the conclusion that I came to was that giving myself the ability to sort of play any PC Engine game isn't going to deprive me of enjoyment that I wasn't likely to be able to get anyway. So if/when other consoles, you know, when buying games becomes less of a viable option due to price and availability, at that point I'll probably feel much less conflicted about that kind of solution. Alright, we are getting reasonably close to beating the stage, but all it takes is one asshole like that. So 2 left means I feel like I missed something. Top left? Oh, so close. All right, there's right there in the middle, but I'm not sure. Probably just missed it. I think is that. I think I just started inside there, didn't I? Or above it? Yeah. Okay, start above it here. Satisfying library to collect. I mean, I can see that. That's not really my jam, though. I think, like, I mean, collecting in that sense. One could argue that it's more accurate to say that I'm amassing games rather than collecting. I'm not really collecting with any particular goal in mind in terms of getting a complete collection or getting this or that. For me, collecting, it's more about the joy of picking something up as sort of an unknown quantity and basically forcing myself to invest enough money and or effort to care about it. Because I think that's, for me, the major thing. Like, if you load a game off a list, you have an SD card full of 4,000 games, it's difficult to be invested in any capacity. Do we go to the bottom first? Oh, no, I think I'll come out of... Well, I guess it doesn't matter. I can go either way. And if you have zero investment, it's easier to give up something before you reach the point where it would become enjoyable, you know? That's kind of what I learned when I was living in Japan and collecting games, like just going browsing, window shopping, and picking stuff up kind of at random. And yeah, you might end up with some shitty games, but at the same time, you never kind of know what you expect. And sitting, you know, sifting through that pile of newly picked up cartridges to see what anything is like that is fun to me. But again, if that isn't a realistic option, I was lucky, then I'd rather, you know, I'd rather have access to the games than not. So there's a few systems like that I've just kind of resigned to the fact that I'm not ever going to really be able to collect them realistically. PC Engine being one of them. And I would say Mega CD also for sure. Like it's getting a working system and the games and everything, and like there's not that many games I'd probably be willing to spend money on. And they might be too expensive anyway. Like it's I've been tempted to order that CD thing that's been announced. I'll probably get some version of it. I guess Terra Onion is making that too. Same guys who made the PC Engine Super SD system. Whew, finally. Time is gone. Even in yeah, for sure. Like things are different. And that's also the kind of, you know, when people say, oh, these games are super cheap. Like, well, my perspective is when I would pick up a bunch of random stuff was, you know, declining to pick something up for 150 yen because I feel like, oh, this game is not worth, you know, it's not worth any more than 50 yen or whatever. It's like ridiculous, but if that's what you're kind of used to, then can we avoid? Oh, okay. Just kind of ends up working out like that. All right. Narrower hallways kind of helps here. The speed guys are a lot more predictable when they're in that kind of narrow tunnel. But the thing is too, like, for me, Super Famicom and PS1 games, Saturn games, you can still pick up a lot of stuff that's like interesting for the, you know, a few hundred yen. At least to my research, looking at Surugaya, with a lot of PC Engine stuff, like you really have to go above that like complete bottom tier of pricing for fucking anything. And I don't feel like, having built up a library, I have 100 something Saturn games. Like at this point, I can spend 400 yen for a baseball game to see what's up with it. But like looking at PC Engine stuff, I don't have any games, and like trying to start a collection with like what I can get, the sort of bottom of the barrel cheapest stuff. It's still, you know, it is in that 300, 400, 500, 600 yen range, and it is, you know, racing games or baseball games or mahjong games or stuff like that. And it's, you know, stocking stuffers, whatever you want to call it. Like, yeah, I'm not against buying weird random shit, but it's like, oh, it's not an appealing way to sort of start a collection. And if I were to look for the stuff that I really genuinely want and would spend money on, I think for the most part those things are probably a little too costly. Not to mention, if it's on CD, I can't play them anyway, you know, so. Admittedly, I haven't done a ton of research, but in fact, like when I've been shopping at Surugaya in recent months, I always do make sure to like at least flip through a few pages of PC Engine stuff just in case I find something. But I'm also not like, I mean, I would rather get stuff complete to have cover art and stuff, which is kind of the main appeal of getting a physical copy if I already can play the game otherwise, you know? Gets a little pricey. I don't know. Just buy the game, so I'm a big fan of for that juicy manual and stuff. Yeah, that's how I usually do it. It's like kind of one or the other. I do that on one hand, but I also It's like it's on two kind of different tracks, I guess. It's like the buying stuff I really want, but also while I'm at it, kind of picking up random shit. Alright, this map is looping. Okay, I guess we finished it. So I end up buying only American games. Well, if you mean Japanese versions of American games, that's definitely something I find fascinating. Aside from not having consoles to play them, I wouldn't generally be very interested in buying non-Japanese copies of games, though. Except for the Xbox. I have a few Japanese Xbox games. But otherwise, like, there's, you know, if they're not exclusive or cheaper, most of what I would be interested in that library isn't Japanese anyway. Batman Art Restorer. Yep, that's basically what the movie was about, right? This feels like a fairly simple level, though, which is nice. Market Pro stuff, flight sims, big manuals. Okay, I can see that. All right, if you're talking PC stuff, I can absolutely see that. I guess for console games, though, it's I've always been way more into Japanese stuff. But computer games, 100%. I'm with you. Like, it's not something I'm terribly interested in collecting, but I can very easily see the appeal. So now we gotta jump back there a second time because we had to go the other way to clean up the last one. Yeah, so this is the kind of funny thing. Like, you start off with the street levels where you have to, you know, take out thugs and collect Joker vials and shit, I guess. And then, like, most of the game is this. Because I want to say that there's a second set of Gotham City street levels. And then there's a second set of museum stages. But hopefully it's made very clear at this point that this is far from a Pac-Man clone. Like, it has maze-like level designs. But it's, the teleporters and shit definitely, you know, kind of mix things up. Usually into most of the Japanese games, says Jig has done 2 massive game series stream projects, with only Batman having some Japanese games in it. Well, I have a broad interest in games in general. Games history, games everything. But in terms of my collecting, I mean, as far as the Batman game stuff, like, there's very little. Ooh, I guess I'm like invincible there. Okay, I was lucky. There's very little in the non-Japanese Batman games where I'm like artistically into any of the games, and in the extent that I am, it's usually based on stuff that like kind of had its. You know, there might be some animated series-based things that like look or sound really cool, but that's more to do with the animated series. And like the Japanese, like the Super Nintendo game is like by far the kind of coolest and nicest looking one based on even that. So I'm pretty. Wait, what? Okay, we got some. Okay. Different teleporter rules here. Okay, I see. But we got some paintings on the far right of the map that we gotta take care of. But like, yeah, in terms of collecting stuff, I never like had much of an interest in collecting many American systems or software. I gotta figure out how to get there now. Oh yeah, there we go. In fact, one of the things that I've been wanting to do since forever is to get like Killer Instinct and Run Saber are 2 Super Nintendo games that I would like to have that didn't have Japanese versions. So like I've wanted to buy US copies of those games and put them in Japanese cartridges so I can play them on my system, complete with like custom-made boxes and labels, because I think that's pretty fun as well. But yeah, you know, it's I'm sure, McCall, you're no stranger to this. Like it's a multifaceted hobby, right? There's a lot of different parts of it that I'm interested in for different reasons. But I mean, it's like going back to older game consoles and stuff. Like people who dismiss the Japanese side of the library and stuff. Like, I guess if you were to dismiss one side, you know, Western or Japanese, of any console library, I feel like I couldn't relate to ever choosing to dismiss the Japanese side over the Western side. Fuck, these guys are annoying. And I guess when I say Western, I generally mean American, because I feel like I've definitely have more interest in European stuff than American stuff, or at least I guess that's not entirely true, but I guess what I can say is I think as far as stuff I dislike about Western games, at least from an aesthetic standpoint, I feel is more, you know, typical of American stuff than European stuff. But you know, at the same time, you got like these hopelessly sprawling maze platformers, which is like peak Europe game. So that's, you know, that's a counter argument to that, I suppose. Okay, this should work. If I need to go to the bottom right. So this is going to be a cumbersome way of doing that, but if I can teleport back and forth one step at a time here, we'll eventually get there. Fuck's sake, I'm trying to take like one step to the right. Yeah, I mean that's kind of that's definitely true about like PAL stuff being worse off than American versions in some cases when it comes to some things like manuals, for sure, at least on the Mega Drive. I guess I just feel like as far as artistic sensibilities, I mean, I am European, so maybe there's something to that, but let me fix this. Compare against. Done. There we go. I feel more in tune with typical European sensibilities. I mean, I feel most in tune with Japanese sensibilities, but after that, I would say that I feel more in tune with European sensibilities rather than American ones. Obviously, that's a very broad generalization, but that's kind of what I mean, I guess, when I'm mostly into when I say I'm mostly into Japanese stuff. It's the artistic sensibilities that ground my interest in collecting games and stuff too, because it's the aesthetics of the games, music, artwork, you know, and yeah, cover art, manuals, all that shit is so cool. And yeah, like a lot of times, that was stupid. Yeah, might as well continue early on in the stage. Okay, get ready for slow Batman. Like, you will at least, I would say, you know, looking at stuff like PS2, PS1 to some degree, Mega Drive for sure. At sort of face value, you're more likely to have ugly-ass boxes on American releases than European releases, or PAL releases. But of course, you know, as far as collecting old stuff, I would have zero interest in collecting PAL anything. because it's like 10 times more expensive in many cases. You obviously have games running at the wrong speed. You have the shitty manuals. I mean, there's definitely stuff that I would like. You know, if I had, like for the Genesis, for example, there are a bunch of American-only games or like Western games that didn't have a Japanese version, or, you know, I could, or I might as well get the US version because it's cheaper or whatever. Like all the Electronic Arts stuff, they generally have pretty cool localizations for Japan. But some of them are expensive, and I wouldn't mind getting some of those US releases. But I don't have, at least later on, I guess, if they're region locked, I don't have a modded system, which I could arrange, but for now I haven't. So there's definitely, and certainly on like PS1 and PS2, there's also like some American stuff that I would have some interest in. But I think it kind of comes down to when I first got into collecting, I had some systems from my childhood, but not many, really. I had an NES, I had an Xbox, which I do still have, a broken Mega Drive and whatever. But I basically made the simple choice when I was getting into it that, like, well, if I'm getting one region's console, it should obviously be the Japanese one, because it's cheapest, you get the best cover art. Either you get the original version of games, or you get an interesting Japanese localization. It's like a win-win, really. Except PAL exclusive Master System, they're all Japanese developed. There's exceptions to everything, right? But that's kind of what I mean in a broad sense in terms of collecting. I'm not really, like, interested in PAL stuff. So which part of the map am I looking for here? Bottom center? Bottom right? Did I go there? Okay, here we go. Okay, this is scary. Alright, there we go. One of those speedsters knocked into me, I would have to redo the entire stage. But yeah, I feel like this is how the game kind of gets. Unless you get a little lucky with some upgrades, you're almost bound to sort of game over and have to redo. Yeah. You have to kind of start over on every stage without all your upgrades. I mean, I wouldn't say that as far as game design goes, or like I have any sort of exclusive things that, if anything, I take pride in having some degree of interest in literally everything. Again, like McCall over here is gonna judge me, I'm sure, you know, for being too, I don't know, narrow-minded and specific in my interests, but by and large, I think... For fuck's sake, can I get out of this damn box in any of these? Alright. Oh, of course. I just hope whatever area... Ooh, I actually did. I was going to say that whatever area I ended up in was one having that has a boot upgrade, and it does. I think I take great enjoyment and pleasure in learning about games and stuff that I didn't previously know about. Kind of regardless of what it is. And I also take a lot of enjoyment in finding stuff to appreciate about things that aren't perhaps broadly appreciated. But there's a difference between that and the kind of stuff I'm the most excited about, or the stuff that I'm the most willing to spend money on. And as far as that, like, being excited and spending money and, like, what I consider my collection, from both an, sort of an, what I'm interested in standpoint, but also from a somewhat pragmatic standpoint. That stuff is definitely focused on Japanese games. So I don't know what the L does, but I'll want to collect it. Not sure what happened to the score font over there. So I definitely didn't quite pick up on how to... Okay, that's weird. I haven't memorized which arrows I should be aiming at to get to the room I want to go to. So if I game over here and have to redo this, we're basically just redoing everything. But I think if I go with the up and down arrows, I move to the different rooms, but inside the box. And the left and right position arrows will take me to the top and bottom of the box so I can actually go outside. Sports and racing games, my blind spot. I mean, yeah, for sure. I'm not equally interested in every genre. But I think any genre of game has a chance to win me over one way or another by, you know, having cool art or great music or something interesting about it. Like I said, I'm really into just the kind of the historical aspect. Give 1 extra minute for that. Like, we play that fucking Lord Perconti racing game, which had some pretty cool music and all that. And that was a really cool game, both for the awesome music and just that it was a pretty impressive, technically, PS1 racing game. RPGs, definitely not my favorite, but I'm not... I guess I mostly don't have the patience or interest for them per se, but at the same time, I wouldn't, you know, if you'd asked me at a certain point in the past, I would have definitely dismissed a lot of RPGs, you know, mockingly. But at this point, like, I can appreciate what those games do, and I've definitely played games that are, like, in their extreme simplicity, still offer something that gets me engaged. Pretty much the same as me. If an F1 sim has a 6-story mode with cutscenes and shit, he will play it. Shit, there we go. I mean, I'm not sure I'll play it, but I want to play it, and I'll admire it, and have very little patience to get anywhere in it. But in theory, yes, absolutely. Like the fucking Zero Yawn Champ games. Those are super sick. I haven't played those games a lot, but what I have played of them is really awesome. Whew. There's one here. Yeah, I think I have the first one, the first Super Famicom one. And I've been meaning to buy Doozy J. It's been on my shopping cart several times, and then just... I haven't ended up picking it up just yet. Okay, I'm done here. Looks like. Ooh, good. Okay. I definitely haven't gone to this one. Let's just do that. Yeah, Golden Nugget. Is that the one with Adam West? Appropriately enough. I hear the cutscenes in that are pretty incredible. Dude, I just want to go to the fucking bottom left. How hard can it be? Alright, bottom center I haven't been. So these stages are definitely, like... Alright, there's two... Okay, so Bottom left is probably the last one. Stuff like this is what I was thinking of when I was saying I wasn't sure if I was going to commit to like replaying this entire game because it gets a little tiring. But I'm pretty sure we're like past the halfway point at least. Okay, so I'm going to go to... I think this is the mistake I made. I went through this one thinking if I go back through the same one, I'll go to the same spot. But then I don't think I did. Yeah, I don't. But what if I go back through the same spot here? Or no, okay, we can... if I go... then I go to the other side arrow. To the left one here. That's how I got here. Okay, there's some rhyme or reason. Does this put me down on the left? Okay, okay. Nice, we get faster batarangs. Don't think it tops RC. Yeah, it's stage 12. I think this might be the last one. I mean, it's just a series that's really cool, so I would want to get any and every one of them, basically. Even though I wouldn't realistically put the time and effort into, like, completing them. Like, it's funny, it was mentioned that racing and sports are, like, less interesting genres to me, which is true. I'm very bad at racing. I have no interest in motorsports or car culture of any kind, really, in real life. Well, I shouldn't say that. I have no interest in cars. Car culture, however, broadly isn't an interest of mine, no, but the Japanese street racing subculture in particular I find pretty fascinating. And it's interesting that there are so many games, like, it's a subculture that has a lot of, like, a pretty strong presence in pop culture. Deco trucks are fucking sick also, by the way. So that's definitely another car subculture I'm into. And that's the thing, too, I guess. Oh, that was very bad. Well, let me finish my first train of thought and then come back to what I was going to say. So, I like the sort of the aesthetics and concept of the Japanese, like, street racing subculture. And I love the idea of games that are sort of built around it. Like the Zeroyon Champ games. Like Initial D, like a lot of other games you haven't really heard of. There's the Togeking games. There's the, obviously, Shutoko Battle series. AKA Tokyo Extreme Razor, or whatever they called, whichever one of those games they brought over. Shoutouts to the other Lord Hank Rogers and BPS for birthing Shutoko Battles, by the way. But yeah. The problem is, because I know so... Oh, dude, cutscene. Very similar to the NES one, but obviously way fancier looking. This shit rules. Dude, like, how fucking good does this look? Dude, the fucking 3D parallax. This is so awesome. Alright, so the Axis Chemical Factory is somehow after the museum. Japanese fishing fad? Yeah, that's another thing for sure. I haven't really been able to get into fishing games. I haven't played them enough to really get it, I would say. Oh, right, these aren't teleporters. We're planting bombs. So we're kind of back to the... I mean, it's not that different, but we're back a little more to the gameplay of the first... I could be misremembering, but I want to say that there's like a second museum section. Maybe not. Dude, we're so fucking fast now. But yeah, because of my limited understanding and interest of cars, the problem with those, like, car subculture games is that understandably they tend to be aimed at an audience that fucking knows how to drive and understand when to tap the brakes or whatever. So all of those, the ones that I have, because I have a couple of those. I have Togeking Spirits for the Saturn. I have a few others. It's called Wangan Dead Heat, I think, on the Saturn. I love the aesthetics of those games, but because they expect you to know how to drive a car, I never do well in them. Like, the only type of car games I can do okay in is like Outrun 2 style arcade games that are like, that have video game rules. They don't have like actual car rules. So I can intuit and learn video game rules, but in terms of learning how to actually drive, that's a lot harder for me. I can respect games that get like super into the simulation aspect and really wanting you to learn, to just like games like that focus on the mastery of the driving skill. I can respect it. I'm just unfortunately not really able to appreciate it and enjoy it on, you know, firsthand because I don't have those skills. But like I said, I love the aesthetics of that. So like the game, like the reason I sort of buy those games when I can is that I'm kind of hoping to at some point find that kind of ideal middle ground of a game that delivers on the aesthetic, but also has is like hardcore enough to get into a lot of the nitty-gritty and the details of the subculture itself, but maybe is a little more playable for a scrub like me. Because that's the thing, really. It's the dedication and attention to detail in, like, I guess you would call them like otaku games or whatever. You know, games that get so far into the aesthetics, the ideals, the everything about a particular subject. And those street racing games are an example of that. You know, a lot of them have, you know, features real people and real, like, references to, very specific references to stuff. Yeah, the racing in Zero Chapter, like, you have to figure out how it works, but for sure, it's not, it's a very small component, and that's a big reason why I actually like them a lot, too. They're like the closest, I guess, to that ideal in that at least you're not going to get really like stonewalled by difficult racing challenges. But it also doesn't like quite deliver on the thrill of racing, I guess. So it could have more of that aspect. Whoop. Okay, that was sloppy, but we got there. It's gotta be... Where the heck is the final X? This is where I started. But yeah, like, as far as what you said about the... oh, there it is. You know, I'll be into even something like an F1 sim if it has a cool story mode. And that's true, but I think it's like one of the things that I love the most about a game is a game that goes all in on its premise, and the premise of being like realizing a particular fantasy or sort of aesthetic. It's a big reason why I'm a huge fan of Cryosoft. Their games might be janky, but like, oh, shit. I put so little relative value in like polished, you know, games looking quote unquote good. I appreciate production values by all means, and I appreciate stuff being polished, but it's not the be all end all of enjoying a game for me. Far from it. And I think it's is this a wall? Yeah. Oh, it's the top of those things. Having, I mean, it's the same thing with movies, right? movies that are like deliberately so bad it's good or whatever, like that's really obnoxious. But if a movie has its heart in its right place, it doesn't matter how bad it is, like that passion tends to be tangible and come through in the final product, and it makes the movie really enjoyable to watch, even if it's not technically very well crafted. And I feel very similarly about games. If you can feel the passion for the subject matter, that can really override a lot of, quote-unquote quality issues with the game. Subject matter, or just, going all in on an aesthetic or theme, all that kind of stuff. Like games that just have a, even if it's a 90-minute linear adventure game with barely any interaction and it costs 12,000 yen when it came out or whatever, it's something easy to kind of dismiss or make fun of. But if it's like fucking sick, then it's sick, And that's why I like those sort of subculture themed games, because by definition they're like almost always designed for a very specific niche audience, and to capture like the appeal of that niche audience, you going all in on the specifics of whatever subculture it's trying to capture is like how you do that. And speaking of Cryosoft, like Card the Master 2 Knockdown Blow is another game of theirs that I really love. I mean, beyond Age of Barbarian, which is like the quintessential Cryon game. And Karate Master 2 is so awesome because it's a karate game, but it's not a fighting game really. It has fighting, but it's more like it's got a lot of stuff in the game that is more about like the philosophy of karate, or like training and meditating. The story is like gets pretty crazy with like challenging other dojos, and at some point, of course, you fight a bear. You stand in a fucking waterfall catching leaves while reciting poetry. It has like fucking everything. Because like they understand that those kind of tropes that you would expect from the, sort of a coming of age martial arts story is part of the appeal. And I love it. Yeah, McCall, I don't mean to dismiss the thrill of racist, or the dramatic importance of that stuff in those games. I just mean that I guess I would want a game that has, well, I guess that sort of drag racing style race is not to me the most exciting or appealing form. I guess what I'm trying to say is you don't get to do sick drifting in that game, and that's a bit of a shortcoming, I have to say. Yeah, I think like Karate Master 2 might be my favorite Cryon game, actually. It actually has like pretty fun fighting mechanics too, even if it's pretty simple. It's like somewhere in between the Indiana Jones point-and-click games and Budokan or something like that, but it controls better. But like at the same time, the fighting isn't really what you come to that game for. It's like perfectly serviceable. It's good enough for it to not be like a nuisance or anything. But it's like playing through the story and seeing more of that stuff is like definitely what you come to that game for. But it is fun. I really like that game. Alright. And yeah, I also don't know why you haven't played that. Dude, I'm so excited for Age of Barbarians 2. Probably we have to, yeah. They've got so many fucking games coming out too. It's weird. Like they announced Age of Barbarians 2, or like hinted at it at least ages ago, and then they made some kind of announcement that it's coming out in 2020, and then they haven't. They show like one piece of concept art that seemed to imply that it's going to be a belt scroller. And that's kind of it. Then they announced, what was it called? Metal Fury 3000, like the heavy metal ripoff. I'm very much into heavy metal. I guess talking about like American versus European sensibilities, like I grew up on a lot of like European comics and stuff too. Like, I mean, there's the American aspect to that kind of stuff too. Like Frazetta was American, for one. But oh yeah, I think I just got an extend. But that kind of shit, the kind of out of control Italian crying soft style appeal, definitely on my wavelength. But yeah, it's the heavy metal stuff, which mechanically, I think it could be super sick. The sort of abuse style aiming, running and shooting, with platforming and stuff. We'll see. I mean, I'll definitely buy it. I'm not sure what to make of it, but yeah. Then the most recent announcement is, I guess that's what we're talking about. I guess it's like a remake or new version or remaster or whatever of something they made previously. I wouldn't know exactly. I just remember seeing it. It seemed kind of like a more generic version of the heavy metal thing, like similar gameplay, I guess, with less interesting aesthetics from the like 2 seconds of video they released or whatever. But I have like infinite respect for their dedication to their values. Can you call it that? Like from an artistic point of view. Like they're making their stuff that they think is cool, with a complete dedication to taking that kind of vision to its, full extent. Armageddon was a shoot 'em up. Because I think I can't remember. I can't remember the name of their most recent thing that they showed, but it definitely had a character running and shooting stuff. Yeah, mostly one dude definitely sounds about right. But yeah, dude, fucking out of control Italians. There's Crying Soft and there's fucking Oscar Celestini. Just like needs to make more sick shit because all of his stuff is fucking amazing. Alright. I like the fact that I guess this game is relatively simple. Not necessarily easy, but simple enough that you can have conversations about other things. It's a little different from the... Oh shit, was that it? I guess we missed a pocket of secret stuff. Man, these stages go by so much faster than the endlessly, teleporty museum stages. I like these stages a lot better. He's like a single man's vision. Yeah, I can agree with that. It's kind of interesting. They're kind of playing with the mechanics a little bit here. Ooh. There we go. Nice. Yeah, it's like a combination of doing stuff that no one else is doing, but also doing it, I think it's fair to say, really well. And again, not necessarily talking about quality, but just like that dedication to those aesthetics and... Oh, shit. Okay, we don't have a lot left on this stage, so we're lucky here. I don't want to redo this stage with 0 upgrades. That's going to be rough. That was gutsy. speeding past is the better option there. All right, we got it. Final stage here, I think? Yeah. First picture when you look up Christian Fanucci is a dude doing karate. Sounds about right. Oh, yeah, you have to like go around. But yeah, I find tremendous inspiration in those kind of games. Like I love the fact, I think to me, Cryosoft games especially, they somehow represent kind of an ideal to me in... Oh nice, we got a 1-up. On some level in terms of like their production values, what parts of the games are like really well done and what are kind of whatever. Like clearly there are some corners cut, there's some things that's just kind of not great. But it doesn't really matter. Like doesn't detract and arguably in some cases even adds to the appeal of the games. Like the combat mechanics in Age of Barbarian, for example, I think are like very fair to say that they're not like super complicated. Like they're pretty simple. They're pretty, you know, it's pretty simple. All right, I probably should have done this last because now I got a mad backtrack there. All right. And thinking of it from a game design point of view, like if I were to design a combat system for that type of game, if I were to have come up with the way our Age of Barbarian works, I don't think I would feel very satisfied with it. I'd probably feel like, well, that's a little too simple, or it's a little dull, or whatever. So, knowing my own tendency to kind of overcomplicate things and have very, I don't know, elaborate ideas, but not really ever manage to make anything of them. I really admire, like, that ability to find the balance between what's, you know, what would be ideal and what's, you know, what can you actually realistically get made. Hey, we did it. I wasn't sure. I felt a little lost there for a while. Cutscene. Oh, dude, that looks so cool. Remember that scene in the movie when Batman placed 100 bombs and blew up? Now that we're back in Gotham City. Alright, there we're... Alright, so we gotta take care of these balloons then. Yep. I definitely had a recollection of there being like a second set of museum stages, but that seems unlikely at this point. Because it would seem thematically at this point that the next thing we're going to do is go to the cathedral. But we'll see. I feel like we might get some bat rope teleport shenanigans in these stages, though. But we'll see. We're making good pace. Haven't continued in a while. Yep, there's some bat rope arrows. Stage layout here makes the gun guys a bit of a nuisance. Did I grab? No. Okay, that's... What if I... Kind of seems like you don't need the bat rope. Because everything looks interconnected. Yeah. Batman poster? There we go. Nice. Being able to choose and give up on stuff is an amazing quality for a game designer. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think for any creative person... So, at my day job, I teach, not game design, but I teach game art, game development in kind of a broader sense, I guess, at a vocational school for game development. So I do a lot of, you know, coaching students, learning to make games, and one thing that I always like, that it's one thing that recurring thing that always, you know, you always have to teach people or you know, kind of bring up is the idea of learning to accept stuff that isn't perfect. Because like everyone who's a creative person, generally speaking, broadly speaking, at least this is my personal experience, but I find it resonates with a lot of people, that creating is usually something that's pretty personal and private. Not in the sense that it's secretive necessarily, but it's usually something that you do on your own terms. Most creative people are used to, like most people, you know, let's say you're an artist. Most artists didn't learn to create in school. Most artists who have taken some kind of art education did so out of an interest that was established, you know, under completely different circumstances. And as such, people are kind of used to being able to be perfectionists, or, you know, it becomes kind of a normal part of the creative process to be able to dictate the terms of your creating, your creative process. But when you're working with other people, which at least from an artist's perspective is pretty, like, again, oh no, more street crossings. There's a weird open stage here. Okay. Ooh, I'm not landing on an arrow. Maybe that's different with the yellow ones. You just land on other, yeah, huh. Learning to cooperate with other people is something that people need to sort of learn and practice, but also just creating stuff for a production environment where you have deadlines and you have... Ooh, this is kind of interesting. The realities of creating something for a client or on a budget or on a timeline is different, and you have to learn how to compromise with your creative vision and process to accommodate for the realities of the situation, right? And learning to find the balance of making stuff that's like good enough to be good, but imperfect enough to be finishable. It's definitely a struggle. So I'm always impressed. That's kind of what I mean with the Cryosoft stuff too. Like, I'm impressed not just at the ability of making stuff, but I can sometimes be surprised. Wow, that was perfect. I got confused myself there for a second. Obviously, I can stand up here without being shot, but I'm impressed with sometimes playing those games and seeing stuff that I would have, on paper or in theory, would have thought would not feel good enough. But you look at it and go, oh, as it turns out, this was good enough, and it, you know, the game works out just fine. Satisfying score. Yeah, we're having a good run. I was about to comment on that a few stages ago. That we had a few like rapid continues, but it's just those museum stages were pretty obnoxious. And the Axis plant stages were a little less so. Once you start getting some upgrades, you know, you have a far easier time dealing with a lot of the enemies. But yeah, I mean, like, I have a lot of... What the... I wasn't allowed to use that for some reason. I have a lot of ideas for stuff I want to make, games and other things, and it's like, I don't know how much I'm going to ever be able to realize a lot of those ideas, because not only, as many people are bound to do, you have ideas that are just far too ambitious for what you could realistically achieve, but also... And a sort of inherent unwillingness to compromise on what those ideas are. It's tough, and I'm really impressed with people who manage to see things like that through and have the presence of mind, I don't know, to like realize that it doesn't have to be perfect. It can still be like something can be awesome without being perfect. But it's hard to figure out where that line is, you know. And I wonder if this game keeps, like, we've definitely gotten a bunch of 1-ups, but I'm not sure if it, like, there's a limit to how many you can get. At this rate, I hope we can keep going, because once you do start getting enough of these upgrades, like each stage, obviously, just with the movement speed, you complete the stages so much faster. Shit. Oh boy. Well, maybe we don't have to deal with that guy. Oh, that's that. Okay, last teleport probably? I did actually buy, though, the Action Game Scoot, aka Pixel Game Maker, I think it's called, the English version. Action Game Scoot MV on Steam. Messed around with it a little bit. I'm actually really impressed with it from what little I did play around with it. I've seen really cool things on Twitter, like people just posting random stuff they made in it. And it's, I think, La Mulana 2 was made in it. There's like a demo thing with the game that has some stuff from that game. And what I like about that software compared to something like Unity or Unreal or whatever, or even Fusion, is that it seems to strike a really nice balance between usability and like ease of use and what you can do, right? Like with all creative tools, that's always the balance that you have to try and figure out. Oh boy, yeah, I knew it. But we still have 2 extra lives here. In fact, I think we just got a 1-up. Oh boy, it's a little hard to see here. Shit. It's just on that. The thing is, when I've watched some tutorials and stuff and gotten into a little bit of trying to do, because what I'm mostly interested in making is like pixel 2D stuff, like these days anyway. I mean, I do 3D art, I draw, I do a lot of different stuff. I like 3D animation, but from recently, what I've felt most, the creative itch I've been most eager to scratch is definitely like 2D pixel stuff. And although I can and have, you know, just hop into Photoshop and draw stuff, draw cool pixel stuff, whatever. Something I can do, sure. It's definitely a lot more creatively satisfying, the idea of making something that actually is interactive, and even if it's not a full game, just something that isn't just a picture, but something interactive. So, although I have some of those game concepts and ideas that are like way too ambitious for their own good, especially for someone, for single person, at least if that single person is me, with no programming skill, etc. Like, it's too ambitious for me to ever necessarily make some of those things. This 2D pixel stuff is like, on some level, kind of a separate desire to just make something that has me open to the idea of setting up something super simple just for the sake of creating something interactive. And my experience with looking at some tutorials and looking into what you can do with most other tools I've looked at is that any creative tool you use or for anything like that will inevitably make assumptions. Like, to get to that ease of use that I'm looking for requires the software to make assumptions about how you want stuff to be done. Because if there's no room for the software to make those types of assumptions, then you need to answer those questions. And if you need to answer 5,000 questions about how the game is supposed to work, then before you know it, it's not that easy to use. And every program like that has, you know, different assumptions that it makes. And for my money, Action Game Scooter is the game that makes the most assumptions that are correct in my personal situation. Like doing stuff in Unity, you can absolutely do low-res 2D stuff, but you have to kind of jump through certain hoops because that engine generally assumes that you want to do other things. And the way a lot of sort of respawning on these things kind of sucks. Like coordinate systems and stuff like that. Measurements and, you know, you're always working in units that are not congruent with pixel resolution and all that kind of stuff. It can be a bit of a hassle. But with the Action Game Scooter, it's all pretty straightforward. Oh boy. In my experience, or at least like it seemed very straightforward to create, at the very least, like, all right, I want a game window of this resolution. Shit, that was stupid. All right, this is gonna be tough. I think this was this stage 12? We skipped past a lot of, no, 11, okay. Boot power-ups, or, well, we picked them up, I guess, but we were already maxed out. Oh, okay. New top score, though. Highly satisfying, for sure. Let's see how many of these we can collect before going out over to that other side. Okay, I missed that somehow. Actually, let's... Alright, let's ignore that guy. But needless to say, it doesn't matter, like, you can make something infinitely simple and it's still more work than you think. Making stuff is work, you know. See, now I'm unsure if I can even, like, fucking reach these guys. Very barely. See? Yeah, I need to duck in here because that's not how you defeat the guy. What the fuck am I doing? Game pretty much like a Bomberman. I mean, it's arguably closer to Bomberman than Pac-Man. It is fairly similar to single-player Bomberman. With the exception, I guess, like, that killing enemies isn't the objective. So there's a room... Yeah... It reminds me of another game, Otoboki Ninja Coliseum, which is a Super Famicom game. It's kind of a Bomberman clone. It also has a 4-player, I think, multiplayer, where you have like grappling hooks that you extend, sort of similar to Goof Troop. I'm trying to remember what it plays like. It's a game I bought in Japan, having never heard of it. I just thought it looked cool. It's an interesting little subgenre with... Oh, nice. At least if we came over here, we can know that we can start off with a boot power-up. Bomberman clones, it's one of those, like... You would think that there might be more of them, but I feel like it's not really a super well-populated genre. At least I can't think of that many. try to see if we can get everything before we go through any teleporters. Yeah, okay. Bunch Super Famicom. Yeah, that sounds about right. Like, I feel like that's where you would expect to see it. Oh, shit. Like, prior to that era, Bomberman was just, like, too dank to even be worth cloning. And after that, I feel like there would be hotter things to clone in, like, the second half of the 90s. In arcades, I guess, you might have a few more. Xvania, I don't think is something I'm familiar with. But even then, that, like, sort of action puzzly thing is... there's, like, something almost anachronistic about it. Same thing with this, right? For 1989, 1990, like, this... on its surface, anyway, it feels like it has more in common with, like, a 1982 or 83 game. Albeit, obviously, more graphically elaborate. But, like, from a mechanical standpoint, you could easily have done something like this in the early 80s. And, I mean, I think Bomberman, like, I'm glad that it's, you know, it took a while for them to really get it down pat, the formula, and get it really perfect. But it's almost, like, surprising that they would stick with it enough. Both developers and fans, I guess. Oh, for fuck's sake! Well, there's a boot power-up right where we start on this stage, at least. 8,000, not quite 133 or whatever the top score was. Like, by the second half of the 90s, like, I feel like... although something like a Bomberman game is cheaper and easier to make, probably, than, like, a fighting game or whatever else you'd want to do for, like, your hot new arcade game. I still feel like Bomberman definitely was able to coast on the success of its name, that it would be probably hard to get into that niche. But yeah, clearly it was popular because there's a shit ton of those games. But it's interesting how that can work. Like, sometimes a popular thing just results in a billion spin-offs and rip-offs and clones and copies and inspired games. And sometimes it just kind of doesn't. Like, it's interesting in sort of modern terms. Fuck. In modern terms, in the last few years, like, it was definitely that first Shadow of Mordor game. Everyone, like, the Nemesis system in that game was, like, the hot thing everyone was talking about, and how it was, like, everyone upon playing that game basically said, like, see, this is so cool. I can't wait for everyone else to copy this system, and we start seeing this in all kind of action games like this. And we're, what, 6 years later, and no one has really done it. Even the sequel, apparently, like, didn't necessarily... I mean, it kept that system and built on it, but from all accounts, people seem to prefer the first game. Can I fucking even do this? I'm dead. Like, there's no way I can get past that. Alright, note to self. I gotta take this guy last, I guess.
Chicks dig the car. This is why Superman works alone.
Sir Pander, what is up? Thank you very much for that follow. Welcome, welcome. Oh boy. Oh, the batarang is so fucking slow. Alright, this might be tough. This is, I think, the first time we've game overed multiple times on the same stage. Well, we can probably do it. Let's try to do a different route here. Because that part that we went to is probably what we want to do last. I think that's on the bottom here. Well, there was a balloon on the top right. We should get that first. So goddamn slow. Basically, I don't want to have to get past that gun guy and then have to backtrack past him again, because I won't be able to do that. Ooh, I missed this. Almost anyway. I like this Batman and the Master System Batman Returns. Yeah, this is a definitely an underappreciated game. It's simple, but it's fun, and it's like it looks and sounds awesome. It's just kind of a joy to play. And I would agree that the Master System Batman Returns is definitely underrated. I'm trying to remember which one is like the good one, because there's the Master System one and the Game Gear one. Okay, let's go back here for a second. Try the bottom teleport. Because the Master System and Game Gear Batman Returns are similar, but they're not the same game. And I can't remember which is the one I preferred. 5 left. They're like kind of the same game, but also kind of not. I remember the grappling. One of them gives you a life bar and the other doesn't. And I want to say it's the one where you have a life bar, which is the more fun version. Not specifically because of the life bar, necessarily. But I want to say that version also had like superior grappling hook mechanics that were pretty fun. There's a teleport up there. Right. Okay. Good. Get this balloon up here. Right. This is where we fucking died last time. Are these final 3 behind? No, there's a balloon up here somewhere. No, maybe I'm thinking of the one I just. Whoa! That was a little too scary. Oh, okay. I think we're gonna have to squeeze past the gun guy and hope that the last ones are all here. I think I may have gotten another upgrade to make our batarangs a little faster, at least. There's one. I think these are the last ones, because there's one on the top left, and then the teleport for the cat balloon. Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. Okay. We got it. Whew. Game Gear has live bar and backgrounds graphics in the bosses. Maybe I'm misremembering that. Or it's the Game Gear one that I prefer. Anyway, like I said, it's been a while. Ah, here we go. Oh yeah, that was stage 12. I think we're heading into the boss gauntlet here. Dude, the Batwing. The cutscenes are so sick in this version. Oh yeah. Dude, even a little rotation there. Oh dude, how good is this? This is so sick. Dude, imagine if the Mega Drive version had these cutscenes. That would be so cool. So here we go. Final stage. Suddenly we have fucking boss mechanics. Right. Trying to remember the controls here. If there's anything different about them. Don't remember how you're supposed to deal with this guy. Supposed to hit him in the back or something? So you're gonna be able to do this even if you game over. Pause. Okay, just want to make sure the buttons don't do anything I don't know about. Because that seems to hit him in the back and it still doesn't seem to do anything. Just remember that there's like 3 bosses and you have to do something a little different for all of them, I think. Okay, he's vulnerable when he's doing the kick. So am I guess. Alright, so we should probably attack him from above or below. Dude, music keeps going. Final stage. But the fact that this game, like, now, just like, oh yeah, there's bosses now. It's so, I just love it so much. Surely, yeah, I was gonna say, surely I don't have to hit him from the side. The animation's so fucking good. Got him. Ooh, okay, this might be... So I remember this taking a little while to figure out because it's a little unintuitive, but basically you're supposed to knock him down into the hole, I think. There we go. It's a little unclear because it doesn't exactly look like he... Like, it looks like he can stand on the hole. Alright, there he is. Look at that fucking Joker sprite. So hitting him will spawn shattering teeth. Even the explosion looks so good. That was stupid. I should have dodged the bullet first. Yeah, I can say that I definitely took a lot longer to figure this out the first time. That was extremely bad. Because I remember being stuck on the second phase. So you have to redo all of it now, I think. Yeah. It took several attempts to understand what I was being asked to do. Yeah, and I just love that there's another guy who just like falls down through the hole. Whoa. He can fucking attack? He didn't even do that last time. There we go. I guess we know a little bit more to expect of Joker here now, so... So I guess after a couple of hits, he starts move over to the corner. Yeah, there we go. Like, he doesn't really move, so... That was stupid. Okay. I need to time it so I'm positioning myself correctly right after he shoots. Whoa. Goggles. Dude. Okay, I did not remember this. Ooh, ah, that was a little clumsy. I don't know why I changed directions there. Dude, like, the sprites are so good. Alright, let's not die on the second guy. I think I made the mistake of, like, aligning with him. I guess I didn't realize that he would do an actual attack. And I prevented him from doing that in the first attempt by just staying off axis. But I can't get over how good the animation is. It's so expressive. I'm struggling a little bit with this now. For some reason. Like, Batman's animation is fine, but kind of unexciting. Everyone else looks amazing. There we go. Fuck. I'm about to lose another life. Oh. Alright. 1,000 for the first guy. Another 1,000 for the second, I guess. Nope. Okay, no, it's still counting. Oh! I was ready for him to come at me from above like that. Final stage. This is such a cool ending to this game, though. I love this so much. Alright. At least this guy does not pose much of a threat. It's simply clear that I didn't quite figure out the positioning as well as I thought for the second guy. I need to... be a little more careful, but we'll see. Because I haven't quite nailed it yet, I'm likely to keep fucking it up. Okay. I may have started to figure it out. Joker's gun is pretty slow, so I guess it's not super dangerous. Like, I can react to him starting to shoot and have relatively plenty of time to get out of the way. Alright, this is where it really starts. Come on. Right. Oh, poor Keith. I guess probably because I hit him. I can tank. Make sure to get an extra hit in there. I don't know what to expect of this phase. But I don't know. It seems to be the same, except he stopped shooting at me. He seems to react when I hit him, so I'm gonna keep going. Oh, oh, it's so cool. Oh shit. Just skipping him falling off the cathedral, I guess. Oh, this is a pretty cool ending, though. Well, timing doesn't really matter so much, but because we're not putting this to the record, really. But yeah, that's GG. The museum levels, for sure, drag on a little. They're a little tedious. There's something about their layout that they're so, like, teleporter heavy. Even the later stages that have teleporting stuff aren't, for some reason, nearly as kind of annoying as those stages to me. Oh, cool ending shot. Yeah, all of them had, like, kind of different variations on this little ending. It's funny in a way, though, that the ending sequence is, like, kind of the least cool of all the cutscenes in this game. One left to go. We have 2 games left. 2.5, arguably. We have the arcade game, and then The Return of the Joker. And I have... Interesting that Naoki Kodaka is not creditor for sound in this. Because they definitely use some of the same compositions. But yet he does not get credit for those here. Unless it's using a different pseudonym here, which isn't impossible, I guess. So, when we first played these games back in the day, about 2 years ago, I took a very, very brief look at the Genesis port of the Return of the Joker called Revenge of the Joker. And for good reason. It's a terrible game. It's a very bad port. But time permitting, I would like to take a slightly more extended look at that today. I'm gonna need to look up if there are like cheat codes or passwords or something, because I don't feel compelled to necessarily play through it properly from start to finish. But take slightly more of a look at it, because we did look at it very, very briefly as kind of an afterthought last time. Alright, cool, we did at least get this image. The timing of it is a little peculiar, but looks very similar to the Mega Drive one, but a little more colorful, I think. Just a more kind of vibrant palette. Yeah. Alright, that's okay, pressing run does nothing. I guess we're done. We're just stuck on the screen. But before we get to any version of Return of the Joker, there's one more game we need to play, which is the arcade game. Which, yeah, it's a pretty charming game. It's not super great, but it's cool. It's got its moments for sure. However, I'm gonna take a break. I need to go grab a snack of some sort. I've been streaming for 5 hours apparently. When did that happen? Well, I guess we played this for 2 hours, and we played the other games for like 45 minutes each. So that adds up, I guess. But we are going to take a little bit of a break. When we come back, we will jump into Arcade Batman, and then we will take a look at Return and or Revenge of the Joker. So, I'll see you guys in a little bit with more hot bat action. See you soon.